All right, so I have finally released the first assignment, the first reflection assignment. So that is available within the content. You're going to notice that there's a new folder visible to you there, a new module. Outside of our weekly modules, scroll right down to the bottom of the content, and you're going to find a folder or a module labeled Course Assignments, and that's where the assignment descriptions are going to be located. There are only going to be two, and you've got one right now. You go in there, it's called assignment number 1. It's available as a HTML web page, which I'm led to believe enables some of the assistive devices. If you happen to be using something to, I know that there's a way it can be read to you or whatever other assistive devices. So specifically optimized for that. And then I've also made it available in PDF form if you're a person who likes to print them off, much like I do. I've got my printed copy right here. So let's get into this description, and I'm going to give you an idea of what I'm looking for. So the first paragraph really sets off what we're looking to do here. I believe that we're not just studying economics so that we can orient our minds toward this tired paradigm of economic thinking that our society has been using over the course of the last half century or more. I think we are studying it so that we can understand what is going on in the world around us. And that's really what the point of these two assignments is. I'm thrilled about these assignments. I think this is where you really gain a valuable skill that you can carry forward to the rest of your life, particularly in the business field, where a general knowledge of economics is I would say generally expected, but I told my live class this morning, just the economics we have studied so far, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chapters of economics is sort of puts you above, not above, but ahead of a lot of the human population in terms of understanding what's going on around us. I mean, we regularly hear in the news, oh, well, we're raising interest rates to combat inflation, but do people put 2 and 2 together and understand what's really going on there? And we've just started to scratch the surface. Like, we're about halfway through the course, and you've seen that we've just scratched the surface. We've set up some simple models for that. So this assignment is to give you some practice in discussing something which is taking place in the news. Now, you are going to pick what you would like to discuss. You're going to choose either an article, in what we would call a reputable journal, or a video. Video can be a news report. It could be an opinion piece. What I want to see in this, okay, so you're going to select an article, and then you're basically going to write a reflection about it, your reflection about it. And I've given you some key points to hit on here. What we want to emphasize in this one is the supply and demand model. I know you thought we were done with that because we've done our test already on chapters 1, 2, and 3, but it is basic. It is really basic to this whole framework of thinking that we're looking at. So supply and demand, and looking at the market supply and demand model really is going to help you going forward, because coming up, we're going to talk about aggregate demand. We're going to talk about in a more macroeconomic way. So I want to give you this one more opportunity just to show that you know what's going on with supply and demand curves. So what you're going to do is, number 1, briefly summarize the article. And I mean, sort of in a paragraph, tell me what's going on in the article. Don't just quote it, but tell me what's going on in your own words. And then talk about how it connects with the theory and mechanism of market supply and demand. We looked at supply and demand curves. We talked about all kinds of ways why those curves might shift. We also talked about how, when price alone moves, that simply moves us along the curves, could create, surplus or shortage. So, so any of those sorts of ideas. So, and I wanted to say, if the article is opinion based, maybe provide some thoughts in this first part, in question one, about whether or not you agree with this. Then in part two, you're going to go on, and I would like to see a supply and demand diagram. So start with your, demand and supply curves, and then show me what's taking place. What sort of transformation is taking place? So this part two is where you're going to actually put a supply and demand diagram together and then show me what's taking place. If you're doing something, for example, that contains a product and its substitute, then show me two graphs and show me what's going on with the product itself, how demand is maybe changing. I'm throwing this out just as an example. Show me how demand may be changing for the subject good itself, but also show me how the demand might be shifting for the substitute product and how these are related, and then provide a description of that change and tell me what's going to happen, or what you feel is going to happen based on your diagram, based on your analysis, with the equilibrium quantity and price. Okay, so explain those things. And then in number three, you have a chance to work, 20% of this assignment is just to provide some thoughts on anything else you want to add about any other concept that we've discussed. So I've given some examples here in this description where we've talked about our circular flow diagram. So how might these shifts in market supply and demand, how might they affect the flow of funds between firms and consumers, if you want to take the simple circular flow? Or our production possibility frontier. Maybe there's a supply issue, and it's based on the acquisition of a bunch more raw materials in your article. So therefore, our production possibility is shifting, and as a and there are supply implications to that, and then you see what's happening in the market. GDP growth, inflation, unemployment, business cycles, anything that you've studied in the course so far, you can pepper it in this third point. So first of all, we want to summarize the article. What's it about? Do you agree with it? Do you not? Try to take a position, and then provide a graph to show what's going on, along with some commentary on that graph. And then some thoughts on what other concepts and models that we've discussed in the course would come into play. And that's that. It doesn't have to be long. We're looking for, 250 to 350 words. Okay. Now that I've talked about the content, I will get to talking a little bit about what's going on. It's going to be due November 14th by 11:59 p.m. So that's a Tuesday. So I didn't want to make it the same day as your quiz, so it's on a Tuesday, which is one day after. So November 14th, the drop box is open now. The submission box is open now, and literally this is an assignment that you could do once you've got your article. You can flow through this. I've got a word limit assigned here of 250 to 350 words. The way I feel about word counts is make your words count. By that I mean, don't fill it with a bunch of extra words in order to just make the word count. I would think an assignment would be far better if you used less words to make a really crystal clear, concise point. And that's it. That's really what I'm going to be evaluating here. So if you see, I've in the description, I've allocated. I want to mark it out of 100 so I can give you as many partial marks as possible. I find working with lower numbers doesn't really open that up so much. So part 1 is worth 30. Part 2, emphasizing the importance. So having that graph in there is very important. Is worth 50% of the mark for this, and then 20% for throwing in some other type of concept that's from the course. Okay, so that's how it breaks down. Of course, there is a late penalty if you're beyond the 14th. Please, if you're struggling to meet the deadline, please get a hold of me prior to that. Send me an email and let's work something out. After the fact, I'm going to be penalizing 20% per day. But if you can contact me before and let me know some legitimate reason why you're struggling to meet that deadline, I'm happy to work with you and work something out and make some accommodation if it can be made, right? Keep in mind, I'm going to be releasing the second assignment not too long from now, and that's going to be due around the end of November. So between the two deadlines, there's only going to be a couple of weeks. You know, you've got a month to work on it now, but between those two deadlines, there's only going to be a couple of weeks. So I would suggest, you know, as soon as I put the second one out, start looking for that article too. You know, you want to nail down an article to work with first. Something that's clear, something that you can work with, and something that you can relate to both supply and demand and something else from the course. Right? That's really what your strategy should be at this point. And then the rest of it is just doing the assignment. And you know, that's not very long. Now, I'm also going to say something about citations. I don't require you to use any sources other than the materials of this course and one article. You may use other sources if you wish, but I expect those to be cited. I expect if you're quoting anything, I expect it to be, you know, I expect you to have a resource page and have a reference showing me where this quote came from. Don't send me searching all over the internet trying to find where you got this information or trying to verify it. I want to know specifically where you got this information. Right? If it's something from the course, that's one thing. Or something from the textbook, that's one thing. But if you're drawing on some other commentator or some other economist, I need to know that, and I need to know where it came from specifically. This should not be news to you. This is true of any post-secondary academic course you're going to take. So, you know, I'm not going to be rigid about the APA format. I know that changes all the time, whatever, but conform in the best way you can to the APA format. The most important thing is that if you reference some material, I need to be able to go and find it. And that brings up my point number 2 about this assignment. You're going to put a link to your article. Either I will accept it in the body of your work if you want to put it at the top, and then you're just going to format this as part 1, part 2, part 3, according to the questions that are asked here. That's fine if you want to put it in just a report form. But I need to be able to read your article in order to be able to grade your assignment. And that means don't send me, and this is one of the worst offenders I've found, is the Wall Street Journal. You send me to the Wall Street Journal for some link, and then I get there and I find out that I've got to sign up for some membership, or I've got to get on somebody's email list or something. Don't do that to me, because I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to look for the article. You know, if I happen to be marking at a reasonable time, maybe I'll get a hold of you and give you a second chance to submit it, but don't do that. Don't take that chance. If your article is from some source, there are a lot of legitimate sources that have paywalls. There's nothing wrong with those, but you're going to have to find some way to present me with a copy of that. Now, I've set these submission folders so you can submit several documents if you want. So you could include a PDF copy of the article if you want. or a photograph of the article. Whatever it is, I need to be able to read your article. And if I cannot read your article, you're not going to succeed at this assignment, because what am I supposed to compare it to? You're supposed to be doing an analysis of something in the news. And that's, the reason why this is such a skill and something that we need to pick up as business people in this world is because there is enough going around which is based on, opinions that come from wherever they come from. We want to be people who deal in facts, and we want to be people who are able to look at and analyze the world around us. We're going to be a step ahead. So that's why we're doing this assignment. The only other thing I'm going to say, just to backtrack a little bit, is where we have this diagram where I asked you in part 2 to put together a supply and demand graph to show me what's going on within your article related to market supply and demand. I personally have never found a computer program that I enjoyed making graphs on. I've tried all kinds, even Excel, all kinds of things. Perhaps I'm just not handy enough with it. Perhaps you will find a program that you like, but I'm going to accept, there's a fair amount of latitude there. So if you want to draw it out on a piece of paper, then scan it in and then include it with your submission, that's fine. If you, as a result of that, wind up submitting it as a separate page that you refer to in the main body of your paper, that's fine with me too, just as long as I can find it. Because if you don't submit the diagram, you're also not going to do as well as you could on this assignment. Like that diagram, there's a reason why I allocated half the points to number 2, because I want to see what you do with that, and I just want another chance to make sure that you're clear on how various things affect the market supply and demand. We just had our test, and I could see that there were students still struggling with that, and I'll take some accountability for that. I did take it for granted that maybe you've had microeconomics and done that before, but it for whatever reason, we do need to clarify that a little bit. Now, last thing I'm going to say about the assignment, because this video is already getting pretty long and it'll take forever to upload. So, last thing is, if there's any doubt or ambiguity about the reliability of your source or the article that you want to use, send me an email. Let's talk about it. Number 2, if you're struggling with this assignment, if you have any questions about it, or you reach a logjam, or you want to take your article and you want to discuss it with me privately in order to help yourself get on the right track, make an appointment. Let's do it. I have no problem with meeting students individually on Zoom and talking about the assignment. So let's do that. I may even open up like a general session, which is sort of a group think assignment. I haven't quite wrapped my head around that, around how to handle that yet. But basically, please reach out. I'd love to see you do really well on this piece of work. I really would, and on the next assignment as well, because as I said, this is the occupational skill that you're gaining from taking economics, is the ability to discuss these things coherently. Okay, so reach out if you need some help. These may not be my final words on this assignment. I am quite excited about it, but have a look through the description on FOL, and please reach out with any questions.